Happy Sunday and welcome back to Retake the Week. We've got a few things to talk about. Most importantly, we do have the Member QnA today. We've got a few questions to go through, some pretty interesting stuff I think to debate, as there'll be a bit of a special draft coming up. But firstly, before we get into the rest of the episode, let's do the obligatory self-promotion. So remember, members get access to special behind-the-scenes content. They also get to ask questions in the Q&A, and they get access to some videos ahead of time. So there's a few privileges there, a few perks. So be sure to join if you can, and if you'd like to support us and what we do. Quack, it's been a week. How's it been? How much Counter-Strike have you watched?
A bit. It's been a good week. Good week of CS. Not a huge lot. I'm gonna say already now, I didn't particularly care about the CCT thing, but I've watched quite a bit of other tier 2 games, and there's been some other stuff to talk about, I think. So, yeah, good week. We're loading up for Dallas, which second to last big event-ish. Yeah. Let's go.
Something I forgot to mention actually in the last 2 weeks, because I thought it'd be funny to just do it and not tell anyone we did it. Retake the Week is on Spotify, so if you want to listen audio only, just go find it on Spotify. If you're going to do that, rate it 5 stars. I'm not sure that does anything, but hey, it'd be cool to have 5-star ratings that aren't me or my sister, yeah. So go nuts. Right, let's get into the Q&A. The very first question. These are basically in reverse order from when they were posted, I think. GSAC Elm asks, does the current Fnatic lineup have any chance of making the major? He's put his own opinion in there. He thinks not. Let's take a look at this, because the current Fnatic roster is one I've been slightly critical of, and one I don't have much faith in long term. Look, I'd like to hear your thoughts first before I dive into some of the minutiae of what I believe about this exact roster.
I think we have 17 European spots for the Shanghai Major, or it might be 16 even. Yeah, it should be 16 because we lost one spot. And we had 17 last time. It's 16. Fnatic, if you want to believe the ranking, Fnatic sit 24th, so there's some ways off. But like, I'm looking at the people ahead of here, and like, I would probably give Fnatic better odds of making the major than 3D Max, who sit 15th. So like, on the European ranking, that is, like, it's, or like Sashi, like, no. I won't, yeah. So I think they definitely could. I mean, if you're asking if there's a chance, yeah, of course there's a chance. And I think this team has the players that probably should be making a major. I think right now it's barely. It's like I'd probably just barely put them in my like in my major qualifiers if I was doing like a list today. But I feel like they kind of they activate a bit, I feel like. Obviously they lost out in the last chance qualifier, but I remember that in the last RMR they had some decent wins. Like they were looking pretty good until they choked it. I feel like they activate quite a bit more than like maybe they otherwise do, like when the pressure is on. But there's still, like, there's steps they need to take. BlameF coming in is probably what seals it for me. Like, at least now there's no argument that they have the firepower to make it in here. Now it's just a question of, like, can you make the tactics work and can you make your opera work? And then, of course, if they manage to do that, I think they need to do that to, like, make it 100%. But yeah, I think they have a decent chance of being in Shanghai.
Now, something I've noticed, they've played a few games, and there has been a fair bit of, BlameF doing BlameF. The reason we wanted to see BlameF on pretty much every roster that was like bottom end of the tier 1 space, like they were able to just always get invites, or they're just staying at the edge. Think Gamer Legion, think Fnatic. Recently, the reason we always wanted BlameF there is because, hey, he's a guaranteed frag. Like, he's, in basketball terms, you'd say he's a bucket. In Counter-Strike, he's a frag. Like, he's just going to go out and do it. This roster is limited, though, because there's so much inconsistency. And one place you cannot be inconsistent is the absolutely brutal RMR qualifiers and then following up RMRs. Like, it's such a long and painstaking process. If you guys are going to have an AWPer who's basically a kamikaze pilot, an IGL who sometimes knows what's going on, sometimes he's a little out of sync with the game, and a star rifler in Mattis who, on his day, as good as you could have basically any rifler be. Like, he's amazing when he's on his day, but he's on his A game very rarely on this Fnatic roster. In Sampi, they found many more ways to activate him, and they were far more willing to give him resources. And then his lows were nowhere near as low. But in Fnatic, it's been pretty shocking. So I'm very concerned about their ability to just make it out, given their inconsistency. Yes, in terms of the rankings, they do have a chance if you think who they get to play and who they could potentially get matched up with. They're probably a favorite in a lot of games. But if I had to put money on it right now, they don't qualify for Shanghai, and it's very disappointing. I think they make the RMR, but I don't think they make it past it. You know, they probably lose some close battle to like a 5 Russian team that we haven't even considered existing yet. That will pop up about a month before the RMR get there, and then upset them in a close BO3 of scrappy, ugly CS. Big Amcal, but just a slightly different roster. So that's what I'm thinking will happen. I'm not very hopeful for them. I do think they need more changes before things truly start to get really good for them. But at least the Fnatic Blame F move was a step in the right direction. Like, that's a step towards being a competitive tier 1 team. It's bringing in a player who's a frag. Like, he's actually a frag.
I'm looking at it right now. So I think right now they sit just around in Valve's own ranking. I think they sit just around where they might miss out on like the closed qualifier invite, because they probably won't have to go through the open qualifiers. Yeah, I think they might be fine. They might sit just outside, but then I know they also, this thing is like prize money based, right? Is it still entirely based on prize money, this ranking, or is it just?
It was never entirely prize money. It just factored in prize money and who you beat.
Yeah, but like event size dictated by prize money. And I think they have a couple of things coming up. I don't know if they're in the esports World Cup thing, but I think they might be better on that front than like the teams ahead of them, like Gaimin Gladiators or Nemiga, probably don't have the same prize money coming their way, if that's still such a big factor. I know Apex are going to fall out of here because their core doesn't exist anymore, and like they probably have a half decent chance of making it into the closed qualifier straight, which is going to help them.
Well, they do have they have like Pro League invites and stuff, right? I'm pretty sure Pro League happens before the next major.
It does. The next major is in December, so that's when like, yeah, that's probably going to be the first major, like with this new thing where the major finishes off the season and then we go into player break, unless we have like a Blast World Final or something afterwards.
It might be.
No, we don't actually. The major is the final event. I'm checking it now. So yeah. Yeah, so I think they have a half decent chance, but they might need to slog through the open qualifiers. But in that case, I'd probably still give them like the big favorite, like compared to who else is around like the same area in the Valve ranking. If we're gonna go off of that, like who else is gonna be there? It's like the new NIP, but it's also like new NIP and Bleed, and then like, all right, respect, but then it's also like Rebels or the Dead Forza lineup, and like 3D Max again sit here, and I don't think they're doing much.
A lot will change.
I think. A lot will change, but like if I'm going off of that, if the open qualifier invites got, or like the closed qualifier invites got handed out tomorrow, then I think I think they're definitely the big favorites to make it through the opens. And then the closed is just like, that's just a Swiss bracket. So then you can probably it's not easy, but like you're probably still going to be at the RMR. So like, okay, but you say they're probably going to make it to the RMR and then lose like a tight.
They're going to be a 2-3 team at the RMR. Like, that's what I'm seeing with this 5-man right now. They're like a 2-3 team at the RMR. They're not good enough to be consistent. I mean, they could be anything worse than 2-3. I think 2-3 is where they end up. Considering their inconsistencies, the things I don't trust, they could be worse.
So what I wanted to ask, in the grand scheme of things then, you think the Blame F change hasn't done much in terms of their major chances? Because they were a 2-3 team going into Copenhagen and they lost in the close qualifier.
I think the European scene has gotten tougher. It never gets easier in Europe. It keeps getting harder. So making one upgrade at a position that is fairly impactful is good, but the other stuff just isn't good enough either. And we saw them at the RMRs last time. They were ugly. Despite them getting 2 wins, they deserved to go home 0-3 with the Counter-Strike they played. So I do think they got kind of lucky. That's a kind of inflated result for them, despite it being not particularly impressive. So I'm expecting at least one more change before they reach this major, because they're going to have a lot of big events in the way. They're going to play online cups and stuff. They're also going to play Pro League, where I think they're not going to do well. And if you look at like prize money and its influence on ranking, they won $7,000 from the last Pro League. Winning one like CCT Cup gets you more than that. Finishing second in a CCT Cup gets you more than that. And they haven't been doing that even. So if they start realizing they need to make a change because they're not even competitive at the online cups, we'll see what that roster ends up being. Like, we'll see how they end up looking. Maybe they start trying to pick up other players from like Endpoint, stuff like that. Maybe next time Slend becomes available, they're the ones who actually can pick him up, or a Slend-esque character, because they do need upgrades, I think, in 2 spots pretty urgently, and that's the Frenchies. Like, as much as I hate to rag on them, they are the 2 players that I would be going for in terms of changes. But no, I don't see them making it, but they're definitely not far off. Like, it'd be a bit harsh to say they're a bad team, considering their signing and how good Blame F just is in general. They're not a bad team. They're just not good enough. Okay. So the next question is nothing to do with Counter-Strike, and I'm all here for it. Zerpupdup asks, who's going to win the Euros? Obviously referring to football, because I don't know what the hell else that could be talking about. There's not a Eurobasket coming up that I know of. And I'm going to let you answer, because I'm going to be very straightforward and biased in my answer, because Sweden didn't qualify.
Yeah,
I was surprised to find out that Sweden didn't qualify, because I wasn't following the qualification process. Who do you think is going to win? As a neutral observer, a true impartial person.
I think I'll be cheering for England to win, just because I think there's no way Harry Kane leaves Tottenham and doesn't win a trophy in the very next season. Like,
there is.
He needs this England win because they're out of everything else. So I think I want England to win. I think they're also the odds-on favorite. Like, I think I checked the odds because I didn't really know, but I did check the odds, and England were like top odds, just barely. I think France were obviously also high up. I think it has to be between France and England, though. Just, I'm looking through the groups right now. Okay, so yeah, I don't think there's going to be like an outsider who can do much better there. I think we're gonna see France England in the final, and then I hope England comes out on top. But I'm gonna say England just for the hell of it. And you obviously say France.
Obviously, yeah, because England suck in major tournaments. They're going to somehow like draw 3 games in their groups, play ugly, terrible football, get through on a whim, then lose in penalties. It's the England way. With that Euro where they lost to Italy in the final was the greatest fluke ever, and they still didn't win it. So I'm not worried. France are going to win it. My biggest fears, as a frog who's going to have to sit through all these games, probably Germany, because let's be honest, football, there's 11 men on each team, and in the end, Germany win. That's the famous quote. Spain, I'm always concerned about, because even if you think, what are they going to do this year? It's just a bunch of 5'9" guys passing the ball around. Well, that won them 2 Euros and a World Cup. And it's pretty much the same formula still. So I'm still worried about them. And then Italy and the Netherlands. Outside shots, they don't look very impressive, just on paper, in terms of the squads. They're still dangerous in my eyes. So technically, England are the odds-on favourite. I just checked it as well. So you brought it up, so I thought I'd look it up. They are the odds-on favourite, and they are pretty far ahead of France. But as we all know, it's a big event. The English are going to bottle it, and they're not at home, so they can't kick the shit out of the Portuguese players, cheat their way to the final. So it's not happening. I don't see it happening. France,
I think
it would be nice to have a 3rd Euro.
Yeah, I could obviously see that happening as well. I think England, they have like a nice little rotation with some new players coming in that that maybe haven't had the same kind of new to the national team. Like, I'm thinking like Watkins. I'm thinking those kind of guys that haven't really Sean, and then Foden just stepped it up so big in this past club season, which is pretty big. So I think things could look a little bit different now. For the sake of Harry Kane, then I think I would hope that things look a little bit different now. I know also that, like, along with the Harry Kane no trophies curse, there's also that one French guy whose name I'm forgetting, who also plays in Bayern, who has won a trophy in all of his seasons, which is like the opposite curse. And this was
Oh,
what everybody said.
what's his bloody
Uh,
name? We have an excess of wingers, so he never comes up that often.
yeah.
Coman, Kingsley
Uh,
Coman,
yes.
I think.
And I know that when Kane joined Bayern, and it was like, oh, he's joining the team who win everything. They're obviously gonna win everything. So like finally he's getting his trophy, and then somebody said, like, okay, so we have the guy who's never won anything and the guy who always wins everything on the same team. Interesting. What's gonna happen? Whose curse is gonna be broken? And then the one way no curse gets broken is if Bayern lose everything and then France win the Euros. That's the one way. So,
Yeah.
but I think Coman is injured, so I don't think he might play. So doesn't matter.
Actually, is he not in the French squad? Hang on, I didn't actually look at the French squad.
He might be
Funnily
in the
enough,
squad, but he's injured, so he might not play. I don't know. Would you count it if he doesn't play a single minute of the Euros, but is like on the bench every time?
it just if he
Would you
gets
count
the
that?
medal, he gets the medal. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing.
I don't know how you count that.
It's tough, but yeah, he's on the squad. He might be injured and he might be back in time because the Euro doesn't start for like what 2-3 weeks for
Yeah,
France.
it's a while.
So yeah, let's move on though. We don't want to spend too much time on football. I'm sure there's most people here don't give a shit about football. So let's go on to question 3, which I thought was really fun. Monster CS asks, create a female super team. So that's not a question. They usually end with a question mark, but I'm going to consider it a special segment of the draft. We are going to be going head to head, and we are going to be drafting pick, if you know what I mean. Just because that's how you should do these things. And I'm going to let you have first pick.
Oh, thank you. And okay, so I get to pick whatever position I want here.
Whatever position you want. We are going to try and stick to some positional, logic. 5 AWPers would be funny, but I'm not sure it'd be the best team.
I might get one out of the way just so you don't pick it.
Okay.
I have some off picks. I picked, like, as always, I picked the ones that I find a bit fun rather than just picking the obvious ones for each one. But I might start with an obvious one just to make this slightly better.
Yep.
I'm guessing that you're gonna go. I'm gonna start with Vilga, I think, as my IGL.
Okay.
I think motivation, it speaks for itself. It's the most winningest team ever. And I think, like, Vilga obviously deserves a shit ton of credit for leading that team to winning absolutely everything. But yeah, I'm picking Vilga as my IGL.
Yeah, that's fair enough. She was my number 1 pick for IGL. But thankfully, this frees me up to take some other spots, which I think are actually going to be more impactful here. So I've gone for, I've called it lurk/anchor. Basically, she's a rifler who doesn't abuse openings. I've taken Kyosa of Big Keeper, who was an absolute beast in the last season of Impact. Like, she was cracked. And the reason, honestly, Big made the finals is in large part thanks to her. I mean, this roster, they kind of went through a restructuring coming into this last season, and I wasn't expecting that much, but what they ended up doing was crazy. Like, taking down Fearless Cheaters to actually make it through. Incredible run. And I'm really excited for them, but Kyoso was an absolute beast the entire time. So an easy pick for me. And then secondly, in my... which one do I actually go with? I've got a lot of options here. I'm going to take on the AWP, the best women's player for 2 years in a row, I think it is. I'm going to take Ana. So already looking comfy. I'm cozy. I'm happy. Because all the other rifle spots, I've got options on options. So then the IGL, I've got a good idea who I want.
Yeah. Good pick. Ana speaks for herself, obviously. You've also picked Kyosa. Kyosa was one of my alternate picks, actually. But yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But good picks. I'm gonna get two big ones out of the way. I'm gonna pick Zaz also huge from this past season. Huge for 13 years or something. Consistently been at the top.
You're taking Zaz
I'm taking Zaz. Yes.
off the IGL.
Objections? Yes.
Okay.
I'm taking
Okay.
Zaz as
Fair. Go
a
nuts.
player because
Go
she's
nuts.
cracked
Yeah.
as hell. Yeah. She is the GOAT. Like I think Zaz in 2024 is probably what Forrest was like just before he quit. Like the best over a long ass period of time. So like yeah, still kicking. Uh just got signed as well. We're gonna talk about that later. But I think they're winning. I think they're winning Impact, and again, and I think Zaz is going to be a big part of that because she's playing a huge game. Even coming into that team, which was already stacked as hell, she's still played a really, really, really good game. So yeah, I'm picking Zaz, and I am. This is not biased because it was Monster asking the question, coach of FlyQuest Red, but I am picking Bibian as well, who I think is one like individually I think she's one of the best players who are going to play in this finals. I think she's also really consistently just absolutely dominating NA, and has done it again. I think she's 150 with the current roster they have after they made their last amount of changes, like 150 in rating. It's like donk levels, but like yeah. So I obvious pick as like sort of my if I'm doing roles, she's my sort of aggressive rifler. Just
Okay.
running in, killing everything.
Yay. So I thought
Yeah,
for a second I was stuffed because I was like, damn, Zaz was my alternate IGL pick. Then I
yeah,
remembered the team you have just picked a player from has an IGL.
yes, and it isn't Zas.
No, I'm talking about FlyQuest Red.
Oh, I'm pretty sure Zas isn't calling. She replaced Vilga, but she isn't calling on pigeons. I'm pretty sure. I think Tori took it over.
Well, I thought I read something that said Zaz did, but more
They might have
importantly,
swapped it again, but I think when the change happened, they said that Tori was going to take over. But yeah,
more
never mind.
importantly, I'm going to take Goose Breeder in my IGL. Speaking of 151 ratings, she just finished the NA season with a 151 rating. So that team, to be fair, is stacked and never has any problems in domestic competition. But at the same time,
Yeah.
Goose Breeder, I mean, great pick to fall down to me. I'm a big fan of her calling, even if she does have struggles with her team, like coming to Europe and competing with the European teams a lot. But man, surely this is the year. BBR's on it. She's on it. It's the best time to pick them. And then in my final spot, what I called my like pack rifle. I've got two options here, but I'm going to go with D7. I think D7 had a really good season, and yeah, it's a shame that Guild like kind of split up, and she's now got to go find another team. But she had a really good season, so I'm going to pick her up, and that's going to round out my roster. So my roster, just quickly to recap, is Anna, Kyosa, Goose Breeder, D7.
I think you're missing one.
I need a fifth pick. Oh yeah, I've only
I think you have the last pick. I think.
I have the last pick. Yeah. Okay, never mind. Finish off your roster. That's me. In my head I was done.
Yeah, no. I am pretty sure Tori is calling because Tori was my alternate pick for IGL. I'm pretty sure I read that when it happened, but it might have changed after the fact. But all right. So I'm missing an Opper and I'm missing sort of my anchor player.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. Well, I have two picks, so it doesn't really matter what I pick. I'm gonna pick Shia from Ensathina as my Opper, who I think just played a really, really, really good game this past season. Really impressed me. That team didn't really do too much, but I think they had so many close games against. I said it before. I think they had so many close games against some of the really stacked teams in their group. Like I think they had 1-2 losses against NIP and against Pigeons. I think the bigger keeper game they got kind of smashed, but I mean those 1-2 losses probably could have swung either way. Like if they could have even beaten Pigeons. If they had beaten Pigeons, then it's like a whole different season entirely. Like 13-5 on the first map. That's pretty big when you're playing Pigeons. Shia was like the top player the entire time for Enstatina, and I think gameplay-wise, I think they took a big step, and Xia is a big part of that. So I'm picking Xia as my upper.
Okay.
And finally, I'm gonna pick as my anchor player. Also, because Guild had such a good season, I am gonna pick Nia, the Swede, as my anchor pick. Who I also think Guild really just stepped up, and the scoreboard wouldn't really show it on because it was in large part it was like the D7 kind of show on Guild, but I think Nia played a very, very, very good game as sort of that anchor player, bit lurky as well, taking entries as well, like playing a lot of tough positions, and I think she did a good job there, so I'm picking Nia there. So that's my squad. Vilga, Zaz, Bibian, Xia, and Nia. And you have the final pick.
I do, and for some reason, somehow, the second best or potentially best women's team in the world has yet to have a player picked. And so I'm going to step in and do that. I'm going to take Hanka off Na'Vi Javelins. Pretty monstrous season. I mean, there's so many good options. I think I had Na'Vi Javelins players in backups for pretty much every role, except this sort of aggro rotate role where Hanka was my first pick. But no, that team, Viku, Letty, all of these players have had maybe not as statistically impressive seasons, but just generally very good players. And Lena was a player I highlighted when I did like a breakdown of the finals, like season 3. Like, she doesn't have crazy stats. She never really does. But in big games, finding impact, amazing. So Hanka, for me, though, the pick. She's done an amazing job this season of basically getting in people's faces and smashing them in. So there's my 5. I think I'm pretty happy with what I ended up with in terms of, I mean, I've got the best AWPer, the best lurk / anchor. I've got a pretty good IGL from overseas, like a bit of an underdog IGL, but one I still have faith in. And then D7 Hanka to close it out. Oh, this roster's good 1 through 5.
Yeah, we both picked very good teams. I think this might be the closest draft we've ever done, because like you have the best AWPer, you probably have the best like lurker. I probably have the best IGL if we're going off merit, and then I think Zaz and Bibian. I think Zaz and Bibian probably sit slightly above D7 and Hanka in my mind. So I think I do maybe not Hanka. All right. I think we've both done a good job here. So I think
we'll let the comments
A+
decide.
for both of us.
Comments we'll decide. Monster, let us know your opinion. Who's got the better team?
Yeah,
it's your question. So
obviously he's gonna pick the team with Bibian, of course.
Over the team with Goosebreeder? Come on. I know your game, son. I know your game. But okay, let's get back into the Counter-Strike news. There was one sort of big event this week. I say sort of because a lot of people don't consider it that crazy. It's online, but it was the CCT Online Finals. These finals they're always interesting because there's the teams who qualified, who paid the iron price, and there's the teams who get invites just because they have big names. And they're often disappointing in these events, especially when they get invites straight to playoffs. We've seen this happen time and time again. Furia being one of the best examples of just getting invited to the playoffs of these big events, or these smaller online events, but their biggest moments is like, oh, we get Furia involved. Sure, this will be great Counter-Strike. And they play like wank and just get smashed 2-0 by literally 5 random people. It happened again this year, or just the other day. I can't remember who they lost to. That's how bad it was. But they just lost to 5 random people. And this event, thankfully, the big teams they invited actually performed. I mean, Fnatic did go out in groups. To be fair, they ended up with Gamer Legion and ENCE in their group, so it wasn't the easiest one. But we did get Liquid, Astralis, Eternal Fire, Gamer Legion all making playoffs, and then all making the top 4. So something to note there. It was actually a good result for the invited playoff teams. Invited teams, because they went through groups and then made playoffs. One thing I do want to note, though, I brought this up briefly on the double swing. Liquid played really well. Liquid played really well, despite all the talk and all the noise surrounding them. I think Incadian had a good series, but most importantly, Twists and Naf were off the hook. In the grand final, it wasn't enough. They got out-fragged by Eternal Fire, who, as always, looked really sharp. But man, this is one of the more positive things we've seen out of Liquid in a while, just in terms of the way they played. It's not so much the result, but the way they played was really impressive. And I think it's not necessarily going to fill me that much confidence going into IM Dallas, but it's something. Because considering prior to this, there was not much to be excited for in terms of a Dallas appearance. Like, the American crowd were not expecting to see their team on stage. At least now, there's a little bit of hopium coming down the pipeline.
Yeah. I think I didn't actually check this before the fact, so I can't say for certain. But I think if I was looking at this event and you would have asked me what's going to be the grand final, I probably would have said Liquid Eternal Fire. To be honest, I think Astralis. Maybe it should have been Astralis, but I think I would have said Liquid. Just this is sort of the event where I feel like Liquid should have done well, and they did well.
Yeah.
That Astralis game, Twists was absolutely huge, in especially one of the maps. Let me see if I think it was it was Inferno. 1917 double overtime. This guy drops 40 in 22 for a 167 rating. Nobody else had above 1.0 on his entire team. Which is just nuts for anyone. Yeah, well done to Eternal Fire for winning this. I don't know. Have Eternal Fire? Yeah, they did win something before. They won the Malta thing, and I think that's why they qualified. Because they won the Malta thing last year. Because this is one of those events that was supposed to be a LAN, and then it got delayed several times, and now it's online, and now it's here.
Yeah, it's a shame it didn't end up getting a little LAN, a little local LAN somewhere wouldn't have been cool. Like, I would have probably been like Belgrade or something, but it still would have been.
I think this entire thing was supposed to be on LAN, I think, and then they had to move it online. But I don't know. CCT they've changed their format so much, and the format is already quite complex to begin with. So who knows? Fnatic were here. It was the debut for Blame F. Fumbled it on the line against Ents. Yeah, Gamer Legion made playoffs.
Yeah, but Gamer Legion, actually, I wanted to touch on them. I wasn't very impressed. I'm going to be honest, because if you look at their wins, like, they do beat Gaming Gladiators and Fnatic both times, 3 maps, and then when you watch them play, I'm just not convinced by the signings they've made, like the idea behind it. Like, most specifically, losing Isaac and bringing in Flamus just seemed a bit odd. And yeah, you've seen, I think Volt is kind of like still struggling to really find his feet again, and the team overall just looks a bit iffy. Like, when it was Isaac, Andu, Slend, like that was the team alongside Volt and Snacks. It was like, yeah, that I can see leveling up. But bringing in Flamus, who doesn't really play similarly to Isaac, I mean, you have to kind of adjust certain things. Despite his numbers being good before, I don't think he's the right fit. So I don't know. I'm a bit concerned for them, and the way they lost in the playoffs to Eternal Fire was a heavy-handed defeat. Let's put it that way. So I'm not too confident if I'm a Gamer Legion supporter, but at least they do have some more talent, so maybe they can make it stick somehow.
He does have good numbers. Oh, yikes, he's very aggressive now that I'm checking it. Flamus has like 34% T-side opening attempts in this event.
Yeah. Like, what is Andu doing now?
Yeah, interesting role change. I wonder if Andu got slightly downgraded because he was the temp from the academy.
Yeah, what's Andu doing? What's Volt doing? Like,
yeah,
it's a bit of an odd change for me.
Bit of an odd change, but cool to make top 4, I guess. That's good for them. Can be easy if we're being completely honest, considering who they played. But yeah. Yeah, cool event, I guess. It's nice sometimes to have online cups. This is one of the bigger ones. It feels a bit meh to me, to be honest.
Yeah, it always does, but considering the Counter-Strike I watch most of the week is like the CCT West Europe Series 7, featuring the same teams in, EU South Series 3, like, and they're battling out and they're playing terrible games. Like, this is finally some good Counter-Strike that seemed like it was planned and intentional. So I was actually quite happy to actually get to talk about it.
There was a rationale behind the format, and then I think they've changed it, so now it's just Europe and not like Central Northern. I think the rationale behind it was who was invited. So like the invited teams were Northern or Central or Eastern or whatever, and then anyone could qualify. But that just meant that you had like I mean, you still have concurrent CCT seasons, but then you had like 3 different concurrent CCT for 3 different regions of Europe with mostly the same teams. It's just a matter of how they got there. It was some weird stuff like that. When I actually read it, like the details of like how their format worked, I was like, this is kind of cool. I like this. And then all of it sort of built up to this bigger thing that was going to be a big LAN event. And there were going to be a series of smaller LAN events, like the Malta one, the Eternal Fire one, and then there was never any more of those. So, but yeah, it's a bit whatever. This is a bit whatever. It might as well have been Thunder Pick, whatever, or Rubet Cup, or like whatever. It's
Yeah,
a
but
big
Rubik
money
Cups,
online.
the things we talk about, and this was an S tier event officially listed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Like, it's worth talking about.
It is worth talking about, but I don't really thought it was worth watching. It was normally I'm like not this big LAN evangelist where like I think CS is CS no matter if you play it LAN or online. There's differences, but I think online CS still has a lot of value. But this one I just wasn't too hyped about at all. It just kind of appeared in my periphery, and I just didn't bother. Didn't bother with this one. Very few Swedes worth caring about as well, so not really in my wheelhouse in that sense.
Of course, straight in with the nationalism. Ugh. Same old
Have
click.
to. It is my job. So yeah, let's move on. Unless you have anything else on this.
We do have no. I'm ready to move on. There's been a bit of an event, a bit of a tweet really, a series of tweets, and we've decided to have a little special segment that I've dubbed the Inquisition, because no one was expecting this, and it's going to be incredibly pointless. So essentially, for those of you who've not been on Twitter this morning, Crad has accused PR of radar hack, dun dun dun, because he keeps looking down when he loses clutches. It's essentially what it comes down to. If you watch the clips that he's provided as his evidence base, there's sweet fuck all to look at. It's a guy looking at his keyboard. That's it. And the worst part is, I mean, this is something no one's mentioned. This is a guy who is in a pitch black room. There is clearly only one source of light. He is supposed to also somehow be staring at a radar feed that isn't changing the lighting on his face. Like, what are we talking about here? It's nothing. It's sweet nothing. But PR went off on a rant. Put a bunch of clips out there. And then Tobiz, the coach of Mouse Sports NXT. Sorry?
Crad went on a rant.
Did I misspeak? Yes, sorry. Yeah, Crad was ranting about it. And then Tobiz of Mouse NXT, he put out some tweets basically going, it's just a tick that he does, like stares down at his keyboard, there's the word, and spams caps, like it's a sort of tick. Lots of people have attested to having the same tick. I've even done it before. So I spam caps all the time. I don't always look at my keyboard, but I will if there's sometimes, it just bugs you, like, did I turn caps off after you've been spamming caps? And you just end up looking down at it whilst you're doing it. That's happened to me, so I think it's a pretty common tick for anyone who uses a keyboard.
Okay.
And so it makes it an even more nonsensical accusation. But yeah, if it does turn out PR this entire time's been cheating, well, what do you do? You're not even good at it. You keep losing the rounds.
Then you can rate this podcast 1 star. If it turns out PR has been radar cheating, you can rate us 1 star. That's fair. Let's do that.
Because come on.
Yeah,
and all these clips, if he was looking at his radar, he wasn't using it, so what was the point?
Yeah, the clips is also like he loses all of these rounds where he's supposedly using radar. Like there's one where he sticks a defuse on Ancient in a 1v1, and the other guy, like the T is holding from Donut or whatever. So he just sits down and then he looks down at his keyboard like while he's defusing. And the guy swings from Donut and kills him because he was exposed. Like it's so like, oh, he's obviously using radar, and then the question is kind of like, all right, sure, for what? Like he's not winning. There's no winning here. So
he's not using the info on the radar that he would have. So what's the point? I was going to make a really facetious tweet because in one of the clips that somehow is supposed to be something, he looks at his radar, quotation marks being aggressively used here, then rotates all the way around Ancient and joins his teammates. Like, haha, he was using radar. He knew exactly where his teammate was. Cheat.
Yeah.
Cheat.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on.
Yeah. So there's nothing.
But yeah, that's the Inquisition, really. That's the entire Inquisition. Like, Crad got,
Yeah.
I don't know, he woke up this morning, decided he was going to watch some clips, or last night, and draw some ridiculous conclusions. And that's the entirety of it.
In the comments under the ongoing Mouse NXT bait game, like one of the top comments is Crad himself posting his own tweet in one of the comments. Like that's on one of the HLTV comments. So
Petty
nothing. It is
childishness
nothing.
will never be taught.
It's funny considering just a couple of months ago we were talking about in this very same tournament, European Pro League. Actually, sorry, this is a CCT game.
Yeah,
but,
it's different tournament, but yeah.
Yeah, but it was the same team, and this time it was Tobis accusing Cons of radar cheating, which it
Yeah.
might have been, but it's funny that it happened the other way.
Yeah, that was this little smack of irony, just like, oh, remember when you made fairly unproven accusations about someone? I'd hate for that to come back to bite you in the ass, but I think we should ban PR and remove Mouse NXT. The evidence is just stacked up against them.
I do wonder if EUPL like end up doing anything with this, because that, like we said, that tournament seems to be entirely it seems to be run by someone who doesn't know anything about anything. I heard they pay out their prize money in crypto. I don't know if that's true, but
oh yeah, give me a break.
Yeah. I
By the
wonder if
time
they will
pay it out,
ban.
the fucking payout's worth nothing.
Because I remember when CC, I know there's someone also complained like this or last week about being banned from CCTV, and the motivation, or CCT, and the motivation from CCT was like, do you have any evidence of us cheating? And the motivation was, no, but you're so inconsistent that we have to ban you. Like we don't know, we don't know if you're match fixing, but you're so inconsistent so that people think you are, and therefore we have to ban you.
That's the most Twitch chat level bullshit.
Yeah, and that was from the organizers. And I remember last year everybody was saying when Joel's thing Joel's thing broke, one of the things was like, oh, he's CCT banned, and that was an indication of him match fixing. And then like, if this is how TOs are treating these kinds of things, like I wouldn't be surprised if Mouse NXT end up with a ban in whatever event this was, just because there's gonna be people in Twitch chat spamming and everything, and then they're gonna be like, yeah, we're just gonna ban you, sorry.
Twitch chat,
and if that was the case, that kind of puts the whole he's banned from CCT, like CCT thing around Joel, that kind of puts it in a different perspective. But interesting, to say the least.
We need that. I need to start like queuing up just like sound effects, like we're running a like mid 2000s fucking radio show. I need that Scottish woman. Smells like shite.
Oh, dude, that would be so amazing. Like having a radio show soundboard, air horns, like.
Yeah, that'd be awful.
Yeah.
Now with the weather.
Oh, have you seen that one where it's like some American radio show, and he's like, name 3 countries that aren't in North America, and whoever has called in names like, names like Africa, Asia, and South America. And then,
wow.
He's like all of the air horns are blaring, and it's all like, the damn son, and he's like, Asia's a continent. Africa's a continent.
I know the clip.
Like, yeah.
It's not even radio show. It's from that podcast.
Do you not know the difference between a country and a continent?
Yeah, I know that guy. No, that guy, he runs a podcast, and he does that to people all the time. Not even just on trivia shit. Just like, he'll let people like, okay, so why do you think it's okay for blah, blah, blah? And then they'll give their reasons. Then he just starts like refuting them, but inserting air horns between every single one. I know who you mean. That guy's such a troll.
Yeah. We should do that.
Yeah, just bring on guests just to do that to them. That'd be a great idea.
Yeah.
But all right, let's move on to the Eternal Shuffle, because there's a few things on here. Quite a few things. And I'm sure we'll have some opinions. And first up, this was a terrible one. 9 have announced their new roster. And it's... Boy... I had to mute you. Oh my god. Apologies for that random round of applause.
Perfect timing as well.
The team is Rals, Refresh, Mantu, Masuta, and Sound. I mean, why do
It's
people
worthy
keep
of the golden one.
smashing together random fives? What is this?
Yeah.
Some goofy TSM type roster. Like, what? Do you
Oh
have
yeah,
any hope for this?
everyone just looked at TSM and just went, "I'll have some of that." Yeah. Yeah, it's I think okay, so I rate Mantu just on a base level. I think especially where this team is going to be competing, I think Mantu is absolutely going to be sufficient. I I don't have anything against Misuta. Also at this level, I think Misuta is sort of still waiting for that chance to have a post Vitality redemption arc, because all of his attempts at his previously have kind of not worked out. So I think could this be here? Probably not. I think Rals and Refresh, if they're trying to do something like we're gonna try to build a foundation, then I think Rals and Refresh could be something, and they're gonna get cut later on. Sound, I think, has shown a high level, sort of sporadically. I feel like he has consistent good output, but he also has like some worse sections. Notably, when he was on Nexus, they played the RMR, and he was hard carrying them at that event. In the BRMR, which was the only reason why they didn't finish. They did finish last, but they probably shouldn't have, because he was absolutely banging statistically. But everyone else in the team did jack shit. So I think Sound. There's players here who I think can do good, but like if we're talking about, we have a bunch of these little teams come through now. We had 5W last week, and we have TSM are building something Danish, and we have this one, and there's the Revenant roster, which with NBK and Nivera, which is rumored, and like there's a bunch of these. If we're rating all of these, I honestly might put 9 close to the bottom, because I just think there isn't a lot of room to move upwards. Unlike like the Revenant roster, there's a lot of players you can criticize there, but I think, let's see if I remember this roster correctly, but I think everyone except NBK on that team has a lot of potential ceiling
I didn't see this
upwards.
leak or this rumor. So who is the five?
It's fuck, I need to find it. Off the top of my head, it's NBK, Nivera, Adex, and Lonix, and then the fifth is I think it was Raiko, the fifth.
Huh.
So I think, yeah, I think that one. Then you're looking at like, okay, we have 4 players who are relatively young, and like they have some space to move upwards. Meanwhile, you know, on this team with 9, you're not gonna get much more out of like, you're not gonna get anything more out of Ral. It's probably not much more out of Refresh. Mantu, yeah, he can put up a good level, but he's not gonna improve. Like I think he's at his peak. Um, and then Misuta still sort of out on if Misuta is bad or if he actually can do something. Sound is the one, I guess, who is gonna make or break this team kind of. But yeah, it's the Revenant league I like. I like the Revenant roster that is apparently practicing. NBK, Lonix, Adex, Nivera, Raiko. Yeah, that's the one. So
Yeah.
uh
Seems a bit odd. All these rosters are just
it's not
like
gonna,
speculative as
yeah.
hell, and I don't know. I think maybe someone will finally give one of these 5-man rosters like a good time to like establish themselves, and maybe like have a coach who imposes a real structure and make
Yeah.
sure they don't just randomly change IGL every other week or randomly decide they're gonna put like Niver on the AWP if you're Revenant, like, or something like that, or like
Yeah.
take him off the AWP or whatever, like changing random roles. Maybe some consistency will do them some good, but yeah, this 9 roster, I just saw it and just went, ugh, why?
It's all of these. There's also Project G, which is around, if you remember
Project
that, and then
G.
it was this super short-lived mix that just signed. I think at some point last year they signed a bunch of players, and then all of them split up. I think it's just some guy like a bedroom org, and then like
Oh, yeah,
these
it's
are
complete
mixes that
randomness.
show up. They show up in different prac teams, like on prac.com, and this is stuff that Gromov then posts on Twitter, and then like, holy shit! I think if you're just scrolling through his Twitter, like all of the different players that he mentions testing for Project G, it is every single tier 2 player you can name is here. I can tell you, just reading off a couple here. We have Fostar, Sly, we have a bunch more. We have Snatchy, we have Supra, HS, Deaths, Lowell, Savage, Saucel, Svedjehed, Z-Power, MSN, we have Lunatic, like all of these, whoever you can name. So 9 have entered that sort of layer of competition. And let's see what they do.
Yeah, maybe we're just too harsh, but I don't see it. Next, Big have removed God B, which to me and to many others feels like we're no longer Big. Like, this is Big have removed Big. Like, God B is Big. Like,
yeah,
their identity tactically, like, he was one of the founding like forces, I think. Like, this seems a bit odd. Like, Big cutting God B. Just looking at the 5 players they have, is this God B running away? Like, because I wouldn't want to be involved in this project either.
I am gonna
Not
check
a fan.
how if there was any reason given. It's a decision by the organization, so like they think that he hasn't been good enough in the coach role, and they're looking to get someone new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at the players.
I think there's something we talked about, or like I talked about with someone else somewhere about around Tabson and Gob B, that yes, I think there's a lot of respect for them sticking it out with this German team on this, like with Big, they're sticking it out with this core. They're trying to make something happen with this org in their home country, and there's a lot of respect for that. But I think gradually my level, like the where I rate both Tabson and Gob B as callers and coach, it's just slowly declining, just because they keep failing to do anything. They sit, and I think I wonder how much they keep going. One of the things that's always gets brought up is the change between English and German speaking rosters, because it always feels a bit band-aidy, where like they'll go, oh, we have a German speaking roster, we need to go international, and then it goes well for a while, and then it stops going well, and they're like, actually, Xantares is leaving, and we're gonna go back to a German speaking roster, and then they sort of decide, this German speaking roster hasn't really worked out. We're gonna bring in Montu, and we're gonna go English speaking once again, and that's gonna fix everything because it opens up like this wider player market. And then after a while, they go, actually, we're gonna go back to German, and we're gonna go like this. I wonder how big of a part is that is Go B, probably quite a bit, because he's like one of the big decision makers. I don't know. I think obviously, yeah, Big have kicked Big, but I wonder. I don't see anything changing really. I think Big keep being the Big they are. I don't think there's
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything they can really do. There's no one they can bring in to just completely lift this team.
No, I think they're pretty stuck, and they're going full German. Like, they just have to tough it out, because I don't think there's many upgrades to make. Despite me not being a big fan of players like Searson right now, I think they just have to tough it out. So hey, but at least they still own, like, what is it? Their manager's still Roman R. So basically, all of German CS history is still sat with them. Hey, a bit of a weird one, a bit of a shift in the landscape. Next, this is a confusing move that I still haven't seen a resolution to, and that I asked you for insight, and you couldn't even provide any because no one knows what the hell's going on. Metasport cut ZTR. Why? And what the hell is the plan now?
There's, let's see. They did cut ZTR for performance-related reasons. They want an IGL who, I think what they said in the press release was they want an IGL who can deliver more consistent results. I think this, together with the sus-P benching, is something they're doing to like try to. I think maybe they have realized that there's a ceiling to the roster they had, and they feel like they need to bring in something different to resolve some issues to keep moving upwards. That's their view. In any case, I don't know what the move is. as far as I know, there's no player like this. Isn't the thing with Klopski where like they knew who was coming in and they had to cut someone to bring that player in, like because that's the way that this makes sense to me. Otherwise, it's like, oh, they had someone signed who wanted to join, they had someone like coming in, and it's a no-brainer to cut CTR because we know the player coming in is going to be better. Now it's like they are actually actively testing several players. They're gonna look at a lot of different players. They were supposed to play with one of these test players in their final game a couple of days ago, but then CCT blocked them from using a stand-in, so Abdi had to play. I don't know who that player is, but there's supposedly several under consideration. I don't know. In terms of they're staying full Swedish, so a lot of people were quick to say something like sense, since they are a Norwegian org, and they go for like the Dignitas Sweden-Norway hybrid kind of thing. They specifically mention we want to bring a full Swedish roster back to the top or something like that. So no, it's not sense. Let's see. They did mention there's a caster in Sweden called Luddy. So also sort of an insider. He knows a lot of people. Does occasionally leak things on stream. Like he'll mention stuff. Like everybody knew Plopsky was coming into Metasport before the fact because Ludi knew and he said it basically. What he said is they're probably not bringing in an older player, so then you can rule out like Lekro. Some people were even saying Freiburg, which I laughed at, to be honest. But Lekro has been doing a good job in Johnny Speed, so a lot of people were saying maybe they want to bring in the experience of Lekro as a caller. No, probably not. They're probably not bringing in like a 30-year-old. So Lekro, no. And then your list is like it's Shine, and then that's pretty much where it ends. There's a player called Brillo who played on Lil Mix. They did all right under him, but it's not like ZTR is better than him, like for sure. There's LNZ. I don't think they're buying LNZ out of Sangal, especially not right now when they just won their first event ever. I have no fucking idea. Some people were speculating that maybe they're moving the IGL back to Jaquinho, and then they're bringing in someone more vocal to sort of support that. So you do like a slightly calling by committee thing, maybe like a James Yakindar kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know who that's gonna be. I don't know how that's gonna work. I think if I'm them, I'm looking at some. It is also definitely not gonna be an opera. There's no way Jaquinho moves off the op. If I'm them, I'm looking at like Spook or Bob XD. And I think Spook has even like IGL'd out of necessity at some point before, so I think maybe he is someone with that tactical kind of. I think what he said was he didn't really like calling, but he had to do it because no one else was doing it. And at that point, I feel like okay, so maybe you have some tactical know-how and like you can be that second voice. I have no fucking idea. No one has any fucking idea. It seems very weird, but they're supposedly going to test a lot of players moving forward and then make a decision. So yeah,
I'm
it's
not
weird.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about this one, but hey, if they can find the right player, the right fit, maybe they can get more out of it. Because yeah, it was kind of clear that they had a unique style of play, and that they weren't really able to be consistently good, like to keep pushing up. So
yeah, they had the big spurt where they were just winning everything for like what it might have been 4 weeks, 3 weeks or whatever, culminating in that like Blast Showdown, and then they did all right, and then like this sort of stagnated. They lost some games they shouldn't have lost, and like they went to get Rio. They didn't really do much there. I think they should have done more. It was a bit choky, that entire thing. The Rio LAN event. I think a lot of those games looked like they could have gone a lot better, but then they just didn't. And in that sense, I think perhaps there's reason for this. I think if you're putting it back on Jaquinho, then my question is sort of like, what have you seen in Jaquinho that is different from last fall when you brought ZTR in to move IGL off of Jaquinho? Like, what is different now? Nothing. If you're bringing in Shine, I think Shine is good. I think I've said before, Shine is it's like he is good. I think he's gonna be a good caller. I don't think he's better than ZTR on the face of it, but like this is something we always say. It's always it's always hard to judge IGLs because it's very much a black box that we don't really see anything about. But anyway, I think CTR being available now is huge because he's transfer listed, just like Suspos. And I think that is huge for a lot of teams, both in Sweden and outside. I think CTR can be a great asset. I think when it comes to like young IGLs and outside, like young IGLs in tier 2, the people who are going to slide into tier 1 at one point. So like discounting Shui, he's already there. But like young IGLs in tier 2 who are going to be in tier 1 at some point, I think CTR might be like top 3 in my opinion. I think he's going to be a big asset for whoever picks him up. I think Alliance should definitely look at CTR at the moment. If we're just naming teams, I think there's a lot of different opportunities. But yeah, he also might be expensive. This is probably a good time to mention this as well. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, maybe Susp got sold to an unknown team. It wasn't announced which one. For in Norwegian currency, it was a 6-figure buyout with a potential package, like complete potential package, or close to 7 figures, which in real money is 5 to 6 figures, which is a pretty big buyout. We're not going to know about that team for a couple of weeks. I don't know who that team is either. But I did know that it's going to be a while until we find out. So ZTR might have a similar buyout. It should be on a shorter deal, so it might be slightly lower. But yeah, anyway, this was a long rant. Nobody fucking knows. It seems really to me it stinks of NIP. I have to say that because a lot of these seem like managerial decisions that like maybe they're very quick fire. Like they decide to extend the contract of Suspi, and then 2 months later they bench him, supposedly without talking to the entire team. Even like Adam B didn't even know. And then just a couple of weeks later, you sign Plopsky, and then a few days later, you bench CTR. So like a lot of these things feel like it feels a bit like the revolving door of NIP, and I'm like, this is not very good. I think, but then again, we are heading into an off season. Like I think Medisport have a break until like the middle of July now. So like there's gonna be, and then they go full time after that. So I think there's going to be a lot of time to work things out. There's going to be a lot of time to find a player who's the right fit. So I can still see this working out. Right now I'm kind of stumped. Like, what are they going to do? Who are they going to bring in? How is that going to work out?
Okay. So yeah, more unknowns, really.
Yeah,
no one really gets what's going on. We'll see what they end up coming up with. But yeah, I'm a bit miffed by this one. Up next, 500 have officially added Cirque and Oxygen. Oxygen's actually been playing with them for a little bit now, in the place of Red Star, but now it's official. They're cutting Red Star and Denislav, and they're adding Cirque and Oxygen.
Yep.
Which is, I mean, the Bulgarian roster carousel is something to be studied, really. And I'm not too sold on Cirque. I think Oxygen's looked fairly okay, like in Tropic and things like that. So maybe it's the right time to reunite with him after some of these guys played with him on Skade back in the day. But I don't think it's a very impactful move. Cirque doesn't shift the needle for me. But at least Oxygen, I think, he's in a better streak of form than Red Star was. So that's a positive there. Do you have any takes on this?
No. Red Star obviously moved on to 5W. I think yeah, no. I've sort of lost interest in 500 because they had a good run on Skade in 2021, and after that they've pretty much failed to live up to that potential.
I mean, on 500 they'd had some events that worked out, but we're still talking years of history here. Like, yeah, there's not been much actually recently, especially with like Rainwaker returning there from Liquid. Since then, like he still puts up his numbers. Like in tier 2, he gets set up as a star closer, and he outplays the vast majority of tier 2 players. So he gets his numbers and he wins his clutches, he anchors his sights. But the team, I mean, Ships has fallen so far down. Grasshog as their IGL is, I think he has like a wrist problem, because I don't get how you can be this bad and still be playing at a pro level. Like, he's horrific. The wrist problem is purely hypothetical because he's so bad.
Grasshog keeps moving between coach and player, like back and forth all the time.
Oh yeah, it feels like they're playing with a coach.
I can't understand why he's doing anything. So yeah, Ships is something. Rainwaker, he kind of showed up when he went back to 500, but he obviously had that kind of fall from grace after on Liquid there, where he was bad.
Yeah, he
So
wasn't given his spots, his fights. He wasn't speaking Bulgarian. It was a tough transition, and he handled it terribly. Like in terms of his
yep.
on the server performance. So that made sense to cut him at the time. I just thought, yeah, you didn't get to see Rainwaker on Liquid. You saw
Mm.
a Bulgarian guy completely out of his element. It
Mm.
wasn't the Rainwaker we'd all got used to seeing, at least in European online play.
Yep.
But no,
Yep.
the next big piece of news: Paravision have cut Jerry, which is a bit
Mm.
odd because Jerry was, the IGL kind of like, I think for a lot of people, an interesting part of this because he's always been such a good leader on fours, like in terms of making rosters work with new pieces, disparate pieces, calling a solid game. But this Paravision roster has been a bit messy. They haven't been consistent at all. They lose to opponents you wouldn't expect them to, and they haven't really found a streak of success. So something had to change, and they changed IGL. There's still talent on this roster. Like Art Frost, I still rate, despite it was a fair enough cut him from Spirit. As I said at the time, bring in Shiro, go nuts. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
you're talented, but you're not that good. And then Patsy, Belchanok, decent riflers. Patsy also has fallen down in a lot of people's estimations, but yeah, not great. And then Kicker as like their support player. I think this roster still has potential if you find the right IGL, but it's been
I
disappointing to watch them.
I think there's a risk there's more cuts here because I know Cloud9 obviously have to do something, and I think there might be more cuts to be made. I don't know what it means. I think maybe this is just the start of a disbanding, but maybe
All
I'm
right.
just reading it wrong because I think Artfrost said something like this was our final event, and then does he mean with this 5? Because yeah, or what does he mean entirely as a core?
Mm.
I don't know. I'll Jerry being available is cool. It kind of failed on this. I think this was sort of Jerry built several good Forza rosters, and everyone was screaming for him to step into a good team. There was a time when Jerry for Navi was a shoo-in to a lot of people, and I think they even I think a lot of people even tried to do it before, so just wouldn't let him go for a fee of less than $1 million or whatever. So
Yeah.
there's I think I wonder if he has somewhere he can go where he can do something because he's also a good player individually. Maybe it didn't really show up on Paravision, but I remember there were periods in Forza when he was absolutely balling, and people were going like, "Oh, this guy is a very good fragging IGL." Strange move. I think this entire team is strange. It's very much underdelivered relative to the caliber of players they have, and let's see what they do. I think it was because they played that one event, which was also called Perry, and I remember that we were quite confused about like, is this their own event or this is like a bet boom kind of deal? And I think they played that event, and immediately they benched. Yeah, Perry, please. Immediately after that event, they benched 3 players on that team.
Yeah.
I think they might be. This management might be kind of quick in the turns. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
Right. Guild Eagles have been removed from the guild and have disbanded, which is one of the greatest examples, I think, in all of recorded Counter-Strike or potentially even esports history of signing the right team at the complete wrong fucking time. Because if everything I've heard is to be believed, they were advised to buy this roster 2 years before they did. In that 2-year span, they made the major 2 or 3 times. And then as soon as they bought them, they never made the major again.
Yep.
And it's hilarious how much they whiffed on this one. I mean, it's interesting to see where these pieces end up because guys like Rigon, Juan Flatro have had a lot of hype around them in the Tier 2 European space for years prior to this Guild Eagles roster, and even whilst on this roster, they've had really impressive runs. But I think it's also been a decent highlight, I think, of Synopsy, especially, because I always forget who was leading, but I was pretty sure it's Synopsy who was IGLing.
It is.
And he always
It
had
is.
massive impact, great fragging performances. Like in big games on LAN, he was really impactful. So I think there's a good chance that he also becomes an inviting prospect for someone to go sign. So they have been cut, they have disbanded. Terrible result for Guild just in terms of when they signed this roster and the results they got. But for some of these players, this run probably has elevated their stock, and there might be a place for them to go.
Yeah. So judging about like what we've heard, if I'm gonna say it like that, they had a lot of offers. This team before they got signed to Guild, and they just straight up said no because it wasn't economically. It didn't make economic sense when you were making the major. Like they would have needed to be a pretty expensive team to sign to pick up for it to make economic sense for them to give up their cut of the sticker money when they could have just taken it all. So that might be one of the reasons why TSM didn't pick them up. But they obviously eventually took the opportunity. Coincidentally, in the year we only had one major, which would have halved the income of BNE. I think this roster is an example of probably the prime example in Counter-Strike of what happens when you take 5 pretty good players who have a pretty good core with very good chemistry. Give them all of the resources and just see what happens. And like absolutely not even run it into the ground. You just squeeze every single last drop out of performance out of this team. And this is what happens. So yeah, they had a good run. They've played, I think they played 589 maps in HLTV, I think, which is quite a lot.
Chunk, yeah.
It might be the third most out of any team that I've been able to find, but don't quote me on that. There might be one I missed. They did a pretty good job. They made a couple of majors, but someone else also said just before they got benched is these guys. Perhaps one of the reasons why they didn't keep performing is they were so unthreatened as like individuals. There's no pressure because no one is coming to replace you. Name a player from Albania or Kosovo right now. Like, do it. Who wasn't on BNE?
No,
And
impossible. I don't know any.
yeah, there's two on Navi Junior, and they popped up just in like the last half year,
Yeah,
and
I can think of like
they're doing fine.
Bosnian players and stuff, but I can't. I guess there is that Navi Academy guy.
Yeah, there's two Navi Academy guys,
I don't
and
remember
then
their
there's
names.
no, yeah, they're fine, I guess, but that's also like EU Pro League level stuff, which is not exactly what they're targeting. There's nobody who's really challenging for that spot, and someone said like, "Hey, maybe they are just getting complacent because no one is even threatening to take their spots." Might have been the case. I don't really know. But they were given a good coach. They had Stickler for a while, who then eventually moved on to Sangal, and now I think he might be nowhere. Yeah. Um, and then they had Devilwalk, and alongside Devilwalk, they also brought in Crystal as an assistant coach, and alongside him, they also brought in whatever the fuck his name is. There's a Canadian assistant coach, KJ.
Oh, that guy, yeah.
Yeah, they brought him in as well as an assistant coach. Like they had 3 coaches working in this team. They had probably the best chemistry out of any team in Counter-Strike. Honestly, they probably have the best chemistry out of any team ever. Period. Like I don't think these guys were just a bunch of friends playing CS, and then they hit upon some big success by making the major, and just kind of kept it rolling off of that. So I
Yeah.
think they're still very happy with what they did, and it's a cool piece of Counter-Strike history. But yeah, they're kind of gone now. So yeah.
Yeah. Now, finally, couple signings. So we talked about a lot of teams getting cut from orgs in the Impact League with that season finishing off. We've got a couple teams been picked up. So ahead of the actual finals, we have Imperial coming in and signing Pigeons, which is a team who should not have spent the entire Impact League season under some fake bootleg name with a crappy like made in paint logo, because they were still, even despite like not being as on top of the world as they were before, still the best team in the Impact Leagues, in the women's Counter-Strike, and everything. So the fact that they didn't have an org was stupid. So Imperial have stepped in and signed them because it's free. And then TSM have signed Shimmer, which, I'm going to be honest, I didn't know that much about, because Shimmer, they always feel like a team who are just there when it comes to like
Yep.
the actual Impact League seasons. Like, even if they do make the playoffs, uh, it's they're not usually a threat. I've never particularly worried about them. I'm not watching their games with great anticipation. I'm just waiting for them to lose to Furia FE in the lower bracket of one of the groups, and then kind of move on. So yeah, they're not the most threatening team, but hey, they are here in the finals this time. They're under TSM Shimmer, and we'll see how it goes. But it's not a roster many people will be familiar with, because even I don't know off the top of my head. It's Mads, Empathy, LX, Abby, and Phoebe. So if you know those players, great. I wasn't too familiar with them. I doubt they're going to do a whole lot. Hey, they've got an org now, which is a nice change.
Yeah. Yeah, I think. Yeah, so Vanessa got picked up by FlyQuest Red, and then they made some roster changes earlier this year, bringing Mads in, who came from FlyQuest Red. They've always been the second best North American team, I think, and I think that's why they sort of just keep showing up, so to speak. I don't think anyone else is really even challenging. There's like the Karma and Nouns FE. There's, I mean, sure, fine teams, I suppose, but like these guys were the second best for sure, and that's why they keep showing up, and now they've actually got picked up by TSM as well. So, cool. Imperial being signed by Pigeons is Pigeons being signed by Imperial is obviously the bigger one. I'd say
very big, yeah.
Big move. I wonder if I wonder how they ended up here. How did they end up on Imperial out of all teams? Because I feel like there's a lot of teams who could have picked this team up and been very happy with that. So,
considering they spent the entire Impact League season labeled, it might have been the first team that actually bothered making them an offer, like, or at least one that's good, like one that's even barely acceptable.
Yeah,
yeah, odd.
Yeah, it could have been a bargain. Yeah, good job. Good job.
I'm just weirded out by the fact that they spent the entire season, like, entering the season unsigned. I was like, what the hell's going on here? How? And
yeah,
spending the entire season unsigned felt silly, but yeah, here we are. We've actually got some orgs picking them up. But yeah, that rounds up the eternal shuffle, because the moves never stop. And finally, we can move on to prospects of the week. An hour and 20 minutes into it. Let's talk about
it's that long. It's that long. My my laptop battery has gone down from like 60% to 12 while we've been recording. So yeah, let's do prospects of the week.
Right, so my pick, I'm gonna go first. A little known player, well, known by me, called Tomiko. Now, those of you who follow Maui Snake's YouTube content, when I was on there with him talking prospects, this is one of the guys I brought along as an example, as a player. Really aggro player. He's now back on Permitter, because he was on Into the Breach briefly, then went back to Permitter, and then he was on 9, but now he's on Permitter again, actually. He's not actually on 9 Academy, he was playing with Permitter. Also formerly of Los Corgutos, if those of you who remember those upsets. Basically, they were playing all-out Brawl Counter-Strike, and he was the Brawl star of the team. Like, he loves to be just outraging, fighting, swinging. He's a true barbarian, and he's really damn good at it. So, had another great week with Permitter. Won some games, hit some heads. Although it was another great time to whip out this little-known legend. So, Tomiko, bit of a beast. Still only 19, I believe. Oh no, he's finally turned 20. But yeah, one to watch, and primed for some upward movement in the Polish scene, should anyone ever try to create a good Polish team again.
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of been here. I feel like he's been here and there. Like, yeah.
His team history on HLTV is kind of funny. It changes like every 3 months, like who he's playing for. Like Los Corgutos, PG2, Los Corgutos, random team, Illuminar, Los Corgutos, AGO, Los Corgutos, Permitter. Like, it's just, he keeps switching around as teams like get picked up, get dropped. He has to play with a pug. He's no longer playing with this pug team.
Yeah, he was playing. Yeah, a lot of Polish players have. He was signed for the 9 main team, and then I think he was officially an academy player. And then that academy team has just been playing as the main team, just because they kind of had to do something in like Challenger League and stuff. And now he's played a bunch of matches for Permitta, but he's still listed for 9 Academy because Permitta seem to never play with the 5 players they actually have registered. Like never ever. There's always a stand-in on Permitta, I feel like.
I think
Cool
in
player though.
real,
Cool player though. I think they are, yeah, because they've signed a lot of players and then dropped them and then signed them again. But yeah, there's he's a good player, and he's sort of been on my radar as well for a while. But yeah,
right, cool. And you've gone with a pick that not many people will be as familiar, or not as familiar, not many people are familiar with either, really. A guy that I only know because I sometimes look at Sangal's page and go, oh, that guy with the funny name I hate having to read.
yeah,
He's a Swede. What's his name actually supposed
he's
to be pronounced as?
youngster. It's just youngster.
Bro.
It's youngster. He kind of popped out of nowhere. He didn't really come out of Sweden in that sense because he started off on Norwegian teams. And was actually on Medisport before they picked up the Medisport team that we know now. That team sort of, it was when Zeeves and Hare were playing on that team, and then Youngster was alongside them. Kind of strange. He moved on to Sangal when Medisport picked up their quote unquote actual team. And I mean, okay, he doesn't really light up the stats sheet in that sense. He's sort of here and there. But this week in particular, Sangal actually managed to win the first thing they've won pretty much ever. That matters. I'm sure they won something in Turkey at some point, but they won the Res Regional Series, the Res Regional Series for Europe, which is the event that Relog Media run. Pretty big event actually. It's $100,000, and they got $50K for winning this. Some of the other teams in attendance, Bleed were there, Monty were there, Medisport were there, NIP were there. A lot of teams were there. Sangal actually managed to beat NIP in the groups, and they went on to beat. They basically killed Perry Vision because I think that was the last game they played before Jerry got benched. They actually beat Monty, the new look Monty. Pretty narrow game. And then, holy shit, that game against Zero Tenacity was a banger. That was also the day after, like, Kassad came out with radar to hacks allegations against Zero Tenacity as well, which is pretty much everyone is doing. I know even Sangal were doing it after they won. They were, like, joking about it. But yeah, so two very close fought maps where Youngster was absolutely... Youngster and Jota were, like, the two players to watch for this game, I feel like. And then on Nuke there, they go 3-9 down after their T side. Go onto the C side, make it 9-3, and then they win it in double overtime. And that was quite something. So Youngster, the top player for all 3 of the maps, I believe. I saved for Vertigo, but he was good there as well. So just the way when you were watching him, like he would just come out and just absolutely clutch all of these rounds. Like he would be the guy who won the rounds, and him and Jota, and it was like that was just really cool. And it's cool to see someone. I think he popped up on a lot of people's radar because I feel like a lot of people don't really think about the Swedes on Sangal. Like I know in our articles, since they're on an international team that often play in like the same circuits as the top Swedish teams, they often become like a footnote. Like him, LNZ, and Jumpy, who are on Sangal, they very often become like a footnote. Like at the bottom of the article, I'll also write like, so this was the last Swedish team to get knocked out of this event, but there's also LNC and Youngster who are playing later today. Like it's always that, and then rarely they get like a whole mention, but
Yeah.
all of them, and I think especially Youngster after this event, he really showed up in that final, and he was huge, and that's very good for him, I think. So good player. He's going to be somewhere, and he's going to be somewhere that matters at some point.
Yeah, one to watch out for, because, again, I've not really watched a whole lot of him. I've not watched a lot of Sangal since they lost QB, like, since that roster sort of moved on. QB and Soulfly, like, that roster was pretty fun. But no. I've not been able to see him, but I'm sure your eye's good. Like, the numbers weren't crazy when I looked at the sheet, I was like, this guy? Looked at the stats, I was like, huh? But if he's having game-winning impact on the eye test, like, it's something I can believe in. So, hey, maybe he is a good player.
He in the semifinal just prior, he was actually quite poor statistically, and I think he said himself he had a really off day. And then in the final, he just absolutely obliterated the enemy team, which was, I mean, sure, but yeah, his average has never been too good. Like you never look at him and you go like, all right, this guy, I should watch some of his demos. It's more like you watch a single game and then you're like, all right, like yeah, yeah.
Cool. Right. That's going to be the show, I think. Yeah. Be sure to leave your comments telling us what you think, and find this show on Spotify if you're a Spotify listener type who's been occasionally commenting, asking for Spotify versions of the show. It's there now. So
If I was narcissistic to listen to my own voice that much, I would have listened on Spotify. Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I did the other day. I was actually like, I brought it up. And I started listening. I was like, damn, these guys are interesting. I left it on for a straight like 10 minutes listening to us talk. I was like,
Yeah.
You know what? I would listen to this show if I was just a random Counter-Strike fan. Yeah, no, I would.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big up my ego. Biggest part of my body, unbeaten. Been growing it in the gym every day since I was a teenager. My ego is unmatched. But all right. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, you're my hero. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.